The Polaron team would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians throughout Australia and their continued connection to land, sea, and the community. We pay respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. In particular, we'd like to acknowledge the clan of the Boon-Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, where our offices are located. First up, I'd like to start with the agenda. We'll firstly introduce our panelists and hear from NAATI and Polaron's founder before moving to our panel discussion and finishing off with a Q&A. This is just a reminder that this session is being recorded and will be available to watch on demand. There is a live chat box where you can send through any questions or comments for the Q&A at the end of this webinar. First off, I would like to introduce Lee Yakumis. Lee is a Strategic Engagement Manager at NAATI. Today, she will briefly tell us about NAATI's interpreting certification process. Welcome, Lee. All our panelists are connected to the interpreting industry in some form. Interpreting is a growing necessity, and we thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to showcase the day in the life of an interpreter. I would now like to introduce Carla Fuentes. Carla has a double degree in business management and international commerce, and she is one of Polaron's newest members to the language services team. Welcome, Carla. Next up, I would like to introduce Serena Fan. Serena is an accomplished interpreter, translator, NAATI examiner, and is the founder of Serena Fan Language Services. Serena has been interpreting since 1990 and is one of the most versatile and recognized interpreters in the Vietnamese and English space. Welcome, Serena. We also have Mikoto Araki with us today. Mikoto has been a freelance community interpreter in English and Japanese since 1997. She specializes in the medical and legal domain and is passionate about the environment and sustainability. Welcome, Mikoto. I also would like to give a warm welcome to Eva Hussein, the founder and director of Polaron. She is a practicing interpreter and a NAATI examiner. Eva will be the moderator for this webinar. Now, Eva, can you tell me a bit more about the interpreting services at Polaron?
Thank you so much, Angelo, for this warm welcome, and welcome everyone. I think we had nearly 160 people registered for this webinar, so there's clearly a lot of appetite from people to connect. So those of us that have been around for a while, we're probably going to be preaching to the converted, and those of you that are maybe thinking about interpreters, hopefully you'll take away some new information from the old hands that we are. So before I answer your question directly, Angela, I just wanted to say that Serena is the reason why I am an interpreter and translator. I met her very early on when she presented a session at City of Port Phillip, where I used to work on how to work with interpreters, and she really inspired me. So we do a little bit of interpreting, I should say. We mostly do translation, but one of the reasons why I'm speaking to you from the car today is interpreting. Because guess what? I was late. Well, I wasn't late, but the interpreting ran over time. So this is why. We provide language services in about 170 different languages, and it includes community-approved translations, interpreting, some co-design with communities. So there's a whole range of things we do. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today.
Shall I take over?
Please go ahead, Lee. Go for it. We have a little presentation for you, so I think Emily's going to share that on her screen.
Yeah, I've got that. Thank you. Thanks, Eva, and thanks everyone for coming together today. We just thought it was worth giving you a bit of an overview of what NAATI is and what certification means, because if you're thinking about becoming an interpreter, this might be something you're considering. So what is NAATI? NAATI is the National Accreditation Authority for Translators and Interpreters in Australia. We also actually certify interpreters in New Zealand as well now. So that means that we're the national standards and certifying authority for translators and interpreters in Australia, and we're the only organisation to issue certifications. So yeah, you might be considering getting a NAATI certification if you're becoming an interpreter. So to provide you a bit of context, in the last financial year, we issued over 740 new credentials to practitioners, And that means that there's around 10,900 practitioners in Australia holding over 15,500 credentials across 177 languages, which is, around 170-ish languages that Eva's company works in as well. We can't test in them all though. So at the moment for interpreting, certified provisional interpreter testing, which is the first level of tested interpreting skills, we have 60 languages available. So I thought it was worth giving you a little introduction into what certifications are available for interpreters. But there's a lot of information on the website. So this is very high level, very brief introduction in the few minutes that I've got. So on the left here on the screen, you can see certified provisional interpreter. That's the first level that we test at for interpreters. That's entry level, we call entry level, but really some people will hold, certified provisional interpreter for their entire career, and that's completely fine. It's a generalist credential, which means that you don't need to have specialized skills or knowledge in, say, the health or legal sectors. And usually this is people who are working in community interpreting roles. If you're sitting the test with us for this, we'll be testing your consecutive dialogue skills. And then on the right-hand side, you can see certified interpreter. That's the next level up. So that's a higher level of interpreting. It's still generalist, so it's not specialized, but it's a bit more complex in the content that we're testing. So you're not only being tested on your dialogue skills, but also consecutive and simultaneous monologues and also sight translation. So if you wanted to become get certified, there are a few sort of prerequisites that you need to go through. You can stay on this slide, that's fine. So the first step is to get formal training in interpreting. That's offered by TAFEs and universities across Australia. We've got a list of all the different options actually on our website you can refer to. So the biggest part is getting that training. We also look at your English proficiency and also your ethical competency, which means understanding the AUSIT or ASLEA code of ethics and how you apply them in practice, and your intercultural competency, which means you don't not only know the two languages, but you also know how to apply them in a culturally appropriate way. So like I said, we can't test in every language. If we can't offer testing, then we offer something called Recognised Practicing Interpreter. This is also available for translators, so Recognised Practicing Translator. This means that there's no test available, but we'll look at your work practice instead. So we're looking to still see that you've got some experience, you've tried to apply those skills in practice. And then on the next slide, we also have, for those of you who are advancing throughout your career, we also have specialist interpreter credentials. We've got 3 of them at the moment. One is certified conference interpreter, and the other 2 are specialist interpreter in the health or legal sectors. And they recognise that people working in these fields, like Mikoto, have advanced skills. They need really specialist knowledge, and they have a lot of experience. That's all from me, just to give you a brief overview, but I'll stick around for questions. And there's also our website if you need more detailed information.
Amazing. Thank you, Lee. And that was a very succinct but very comprehensive overview of how NAATI issues credentials nowadays. Like, things have changed, and they've changed a lot in the last 5 to 7 years. So we really appreciate that NAATI comes and presents at this webinars, because every time you present, we educate people that may not be familiar with the system. All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, we're going to have a panel discussion with my esteemed colleagues. And look, I have been asked whenever I tell people that I work as an interpreter about how many languages I speak. That's a common question for people that have no idea what we do. And I've also seen somewhere misspelled, instead of interpreter, interrupter. Oh, you're an interpreter. What does that mean? What do interpreters do? So I do believe that at Polaron we deliver an essential service, and not just at Polaron. Interpreters deliver essential services. We help people communicate in all kinds of domains, from medical to court and everything in between. And I do find that sometimes people just don't know, even people that have worked with interpreters for many years, they still call them translators or, and we sometimes feel a little bit invisible, a little bit undervalued, maybe I would even say. But yes, we are very passionate about what we do. I've been part of this profession for a couple of decades, too many maybe to admit. Serena even longer. I'm not sure how many years Mikoto has been working in this field. But it is fair to say that we love our jobs because if we didn't, we wouldn't be doing it, right? All right, so let's move on to the next slide. And I'm going to ask a couple of sessions. And although I know the answer to this question, I'm going to go to my very good friend, Serena, first. How did you become an interpreter, Serena?
All right. So thank you, Eva, for that very, good introduction and bring back memories, I must say. And this might, I don't know, tell my age a little bit, but the picture makes me look very young, everybody.
That's it.
But yes, I've been around a long time, and I became an interpreter because of my dad. I was the family's child interpreter. And I say this because back in the late 70s, because my family came in 1978 to Australia, so that's many years ago. And I think NAATI was established in 1977. So Lee, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, NAATI was just been established then. So certification or accreditation was still very new, and interpreters were as rare as hen's teeth. So being a child who has maybe a little bit of flair in language, I was picked as the interpreter in the family. So I would have to come along with my dad to Social Security at the time it was called, or my mom to, a medical appointment. And basically with my broken English, I've learned English for only 6 months, and they said, yes, you can speak English, no problem. So start interpreting. Anyway, my dad was the reason I became an interpreter, because I didn't even see it. He saw it after many years. I, grew up and graduated. I did other jobs. And one day I said to him, I don't like working for people, because they always have an agenda to push, rather than, just being your boss and, allocate work and, you get paid. But there's always a hidden agenda. And that's what I said to my dad, that I don't like working for people. And he said, then, be an interpreter, because I heard, you can be your own boss and you can take whatever work you want. And I said, oh, I don't know. I don't know anything about interpreting. And he said, you are a good interpreter. Yeah.
Okay.
He knew. But anyway, so he went and printed a business card, a really dodgy looking business card that says, got my Vietnamese name on it, and that I'm a professional interpreter. And I said, listen, Dad, you can't do that. That's illegal. Okay. I don't have any qualification. You cannot just go and print a card that says that I'm an interpreter. And he said, well, then you better go and get your qualification then, won't you? So that's what I did. I went and I just sat for the NAATI test. And again, during those times, there were no training available. And so I had to basically self-taught myself the skill, and went along and sat for the test. And I guess, I never looked back. And I'm always thinking about my dad, every day.
How he inspired you. Yeah, that's an amazing story. And I think a lot has changed in this space, but some things haven't, because we still hear about our children being used as interpreters. So, very inspirational. And thank you, Dad, for bringing Serena into the fold. Mikoto, how about you? How many years have you been practicing, and how did you decide to become an interpreter?
Yeah, sorry. So I was born and grew up in Japan, and I always liked learning languages. And when I was in Japan, I studied Russian and Esperanto. And after finishing school, I wanted to be an air hostess. So instead of going to university, I studied a tour guide course in Tokyo. But I didn't want to be an office girl and live in Tokyo, be like Sarina. And I went to Taiwan. I traveled south, got to Taiwan, and that led me going to Beijing to study Mandarin. I studied Mandarin in Beijing for 3 years. And my first job as an interpreter, I was an in-house interpreter for a Japanese construction architecture company in Beijing. I was a Mandarin to Japanese interpreter and translator, but the job suddenly came to an end because of the Tiananmen Square massacre. When I came back to Japan after the Tiananmen massacre, because there was no job using Chinese for me, as the Japanese government was upset and suspended any economic relations with China. So that's how I came to Australia. I came to Australia in 1990, and I don't work as a Mandarin interpreter because it's not my native language. So I did some short courses in Tasmania, and I was lucky to pass NAATI accreditation in 1996. So since then, I've been working as a freelance Japanese translator and interpreter. And yes, and I'm a single mom. So I think this suited me as a single, being a single mom while raising my son. It suited my lifestyle because I can choose which job to take and which job not to take.
Yeah, amazing. Lots of flexibility. Carla, how about you? How did you become an interpreter? Just joking. I know you're not an interpreter, but how did you get into the language industry? What happened? Tell us a bit more.
Yes, I'm not an interpreter, but I do have a passion for languages, and I always thought I was born in Peru, born and raised there, and I always liked businesses, but also I have a passion for languages, and I couldn't find a way to work in both the spaces. I haven't even thought that was possible until I came here in Australia, and I connected with Polaron, which is amazing, and by working also with interpreters, and it's amazing. Our process in interpreting, it's not only to set a date, time, and the language, but also to know more about what's the purpose, what is the context of the session. And also we require to brief our interpreters beforehand. It's very, very important. But looking at, as a migrant person and not having English as my first language, it's very, very important and crucial into finding information, into finding support. I think is one of the motivations, key motivations for me to work at Polaron and to work in the industry of languages and translation and interpreting.
And you're such a good advocate, actually, of what we do and our colleagues, because quite a few times, people don't know what it takes to be a good interpreter. And today we're showcasing a couple of superstars, but your job is to actually sell that to clients who may not necessarily want to pay for it. They don't really understand. They don't have a budget. Sometimes they don't understand, like you said, that people need to be briefed or debriefed. We work in lots of very difficult spaces like domestic violence, child abuse. There's lots of trauma in our work. So I guess your job really is to explain that to prospective clients and showcase why they should work well with our interpreters, of course, but also how to tell whether the interpreting practice is good or not, right?
Yes, exactly. And to show them why it's important having an interpreter there, and also to give all the information and tools to the interpreter. To be aware of not only the main session, but also external factors. If there is a parking spot for them, if there's been work being done around the area where the session is going to be. Is it live, online? All these external factors that are not mainly from the interpreting session, it's crucial. And once you give that information to the client, which finally all these factors will help to have the best quality service, and not only for the client but also for the person that it's helping them to communicate with.
That's right.
It could be either in a courtroom, in a hospital. It's crucial. It's very important. And a couple of weeks ago, we went to the courts and we saw the interpreters on action, which was amazing and really eye-opening to see that it's not only stepping up, going in a building and doing the interpreting, is more than that.
Yeah, so much more. And therefore we don't make it transactional. We, often interpreters themselves might think, well, what does an agency do? So we do educate our clients, and we advocate on behalf of our colleagues, I guess, because those little things such as parking or knowing where to, how to go through security or whatever, for someone that's starting out industry, both Mikoto and Serena are really very, very experienced. And from Serena in particular, at the beginning, I learned a lot. But new people that are starting out in the industry may not know that. And we really promote this approach to clients, that you should really see interpreters as your colleagues, as your partners. The interpreting occasion will only be as good as what you make it, and you can't expect interpreters just to walk in and perform if you've not told them what the session is about. I might move into the next question, Emily, thank you, which is, what does your typical day look like? And I'll start with Mikoto, because I know that you do both interpreting and translating, as does Serena, as do I. Yeah. But is it tea or coffee in the morning for you?
Yeah, so I start with tea.
Okay.
I love Ceylon tea, but then I make a coffee, so I have a tea and coffee.
Aha, okay, so you mix it up. So do you, how do you plan your day? Because I remember when I used to do a lot of interpreting and translating, the biggest challenge I had is to make sure that I book the sessions that I was given by agencies in a way that I'm always on time. I have a bit of time to, have lunch, prepare. How do you plan your day? What happens? Because I know that you work lots of really long hours, don't you?
I can't really plan my day because at the moment it's all remote. So I do mainly through the telephone or video interpreting, and a lot of them are on demand. So I have to be on standby all the time. So I don't know when my job comes unless it's pre-booked. And so in between, I do translation. So if I'm watching the screen, when on-demand job comes, I
grab it.
Stop translation and I do interpreting. But if I don't want to be disturbed by my interpreting phone calls, I can just not accept. So I can concentrate on translation.
So every day is different. Serena, I know for a fact that your first love is interpreting. I can't remember what year it was, but I remember encouraging you to sit your translation test. But you do both at the moment, right? Am I right?
Yes, my friend Eva. Yes, you and Chris Poole.
Chris Poole, yes.
Pushed me to, go for my translation certification. So I have to say thank you very much for doing that, because
how things have changed.
Oh, especially as we get older, I think this is great, that we combine the two. And because interpreting, is not as an exact science as translation, when you do translation, your interpreting improves so much more.
Yes.
And I think that's what you said to me. And, so and you encouraged me. You gave me lots of encouragement at the beginning, because I used to, when I first started out, and I said, Eva, I'm sitting there like how many hours, and I'm translating 600 words, man. I can go and do an interpreting job like 1 hour and I get, $70 or $80. This is not worth my trouble. And, and you used to say to me, just keep going and you will improve and you will be able to do it, more efficiently. And I have to say, you know, now some days I can do 5,000 in a day. So thank you very much. But my typical day is I try to accept work that will combine both interpreting and translation. And I always start with a coffee. And
I knew that.
Yes, and you know, I try to do translation in the morning because to avoid the traffic, you know. And look, my typical day, it could be, you know, 4 or 5 interpreting assignments, and something good came out of COVID, and that is the, you know, interpreting becomes more accessible online. And so we cut down dead time, you know, where we had to travel between assignments. And, you know, being both an interpreter and translator means that in between my jobs, I'm at my computer. If I'm doing it remotely, I'm at my computer continue with translation work as soon as I finish an interpreting job online. But it could be anything between, you know, like a job at maternal and child health nurse, just, you know, helping new moms, to, you know, a court hearing at 10 o'clock online, WebEx as well. And then in the afternoon, it's I just had a session with a speech pathologist for an assessment, a language assessment. And yeah, and then, you know, so the typical day, the wonderful thing about interpreting is every day is a new day. You know, it's never the same. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm still in this business, you know, after so many years, and find that I'm still excited about my work. I'm still, you know, in love with my job. So I think, yeah, a typical day is every day is a new day for me.
So everyone that's watching, you can tell that we are a mutual admiration society here, but that's okay. But I truly have a lot of respect for both Mikoto and Serena, because they are very wise, very experienced, and they have been around. They've seen it all. And if anyone that's thinking about getting into this industry, is thinking about it, you can see how much passion, after, you know, a couple of decades of working in this space, we all have. I'll move on to the third question, because we have quite a few questions and comments from the participants. So Serena, over to you. You kind of already touched on it, but what is the favorite part of your job? And don't tell me it's checking your bank balance. Probably it is, right?
No, not checking my bank balance. But I tell you, until this day, what I love about this job is I grow every day as a person and as a professional person. You know, as a professional interpreter, you grow every day. But you know, I think the main part in our interpreting job is managing communication and managing the dynamics. And that is the most daunting task. And that is, I think, also a task that unfortunately not many interpreters do well. And then they, you know, either make an error or they hate their job.
Or burn out.
Yes, or they burn out and then they hate their job. But I think, you know, if you accept it and you take it on board and you learn how to manage things, and you don't have to be right all the time. It's sometimes also a trial and error. Today you did that, it worked. Tomorrow it might not work, but that's okay, you know. And I think always strive to manage that well, manage the dynamics, manage the communication, because every day we work with somebody different. That's the thing about our job. With most people, they come to the same place, same employees, same clients almost, but for us, every job, you know, every day, every job is different. And you learn, you know, from managing or communicating with all these people. And they become, wonderful skills in your personal settings, with your family, with your friends. But the other part I like about my job is from time to time when I get to work with a colleague or be with a colleague who is of the like minds and, with similar attitudes, and we sit and we talk about our job. So thank you, Polaron, for organizing a session like this, where we can share and inspire and learn from one another. I think it's fantastic.
Thanks, Serena. And I know that you spent half of those couple of decades that you've been around part of AUSIT, and I don't know anybody else in this world that's contributed to this profession as much as you have. And I know that you've mentored other people and you have really inspired others, myself included. And it does, take resilience and, thick skin to stay around so that you don't absorb other people's stress. And that at the end of the day, you see the people that you connect. So that's your, non-English speaking clients, let's call them that way, and a client that needs professional service. Carla, what's the favorite part of your day, apart from working with me, of course?
Well, yes, apart from working with Eva, but like as Serena said, every day it's different for me. And since we work in Polaron, it's a wide range of services, not only interpreting, but translations, community consultations. We work on hand with what is going on around Australia, around the world, newly arrived communities that are growing, developing, expanding. So it's always be on the loop of things that are going on, and it's really important to also be part of the community and to hear what the community's challenges are. And I think this was the motivation as well to create this session of webinars, so that people within the communities that have the skills to becoming an interpreter, a translator, a project manager, know more about these professions, know what are the advantages, what they will, and we try to make it as honest as possible. We know that not every profession is easy. There are pros and cons, but with this space, we hope that those people that are looking for settling in the country or looking for another type of opportunity for a job, learn more about this amazing profession, and what even more the best that from specialists and experts in this profession, such as Mikoto and Serena.
And I completely forgot that this entire series was your idea. So I didn't forget. I forgot to mention that it was. So I wanted to thank you, because I think you do have that vision of, connecting people and really acknowledging, the hard work we do sometimes behind the scenes. Mikoto, this question is to you, and it's the last question for the panel, because I did want to tap into the audience, and they are asking questions as well. What is the favorite part of your job, Mikoto? Tell us.
Yeah, so I'm passionate about helping women, especially in domestic violence and sexual abuse and like that. It's really challenging, and sometimes I feel like I need debriefing, but somebody like Eva, she's been very supportive, and language service providers provide debriefing. So I feel really supported by my colleagues, and I love belong to a community of very passionate professionals. I'm a part of a committee of AUSIT to implement national standards for working with interpreters in courts and tribunal. So I really love working with people, and yes, now having remote through the telephone and video, we can save time, but I really like on-site interpreting. I like meeting people.
I agree with you so much. Being in the same room with people there's nothing better than that. And although technology supports us in delivering services, I think, whenever I get an opportunity to be amongst people, I also take it Angela, I'm going to pass it on to you. We've got about 10 minutes for questions, so go for it.
Yeah, so our first one, this question was submitted by Caitlin. So thank you, Caitlin. Does the NAATI exam include a written component on ethics? I might pass it over to you, Lee. Hopefully you'll be able to answer this one.
Good idea.
Yeah, so we there's a few ways you can meet the ethical competency requirements. Sometimes if you've done training through what's called an endorsed qualification, so NAATI has already endorsed that qualification as covering all the skills, you might not need to sit an extra test for ethical competency, but if you do, then yes, there's a sort of a short course and a test that you'll sit with NAATI, and that's a written test.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Lee.
Wonderful. We'll go to the next question. So this question was submitted by Matt. Thank you, Matt. With an increase in the use of virtual care in the delivery of healthcare highlighted by the COVID pandemic, what are the 3 key messages that the interpreter fraternity would offer to clienticians?
Oh, what a great question. Serena, anything you want to offer to Matt and the fraternity?
Yeah, working online. Yeah, I understand the question. I think, look, make sure your equipment is good quality equipment. Okay. Invest in good set of headphones and your computer, and make sure that you have internet speed that is going to support that, because it's nothing worse than your equipment is not working and you get all stressed out. So I think get yourself ready in terms of the technology equipment, but I think certainly not be complacent because it's online. In fact, working online sometimes can be quite challenging, particularly if you're doing court work. And make sure that you are in a private area. That is very important, I think.
Thanks, Serena. And to the clients that perhaps are watching you, because I know it's quite an eclectic mix at the webinar today, I can tell you that working on screen can be a lot more tiring. And the technological aspect that Serena's just mentioned can be sometimes problematic, because as an interpreter, you might be receiving a Zoom link, a Teams, a WebEx, Skype, there's so many different platforms, and sometimes they don't work, or, the internet may be down. But I think the care towards an interpreter and the understanding that, we deal with a lot of potentially even traumatic information needs to be extended. And, as long as we treat interpreters as colleagues, I think that goes a long way. And, in my career, I've only been asked, and I have been around once, whether I want to be debriefed. So if any of professionals are watching that work with interpreters, it's really important to ask, are you okay? Is there anything, after the session? And it honestly takes 30 seconds. It's not, you don't have to go out for coffee with your interpreter, but it's more about acknowledging that they're human. And whether it's online or offline or whatever, is there any information I can give you before the session? Is there anything I can help you with afterwards? Particularly if it's a, challenging circumstance or a setting that can be, demanding. And the online space, as I said already, it's challenging because we sit and watch the screen all the time. And what Mikot has described already is you might be sitting there typing, translation, all of a sudden a call comes in. So, we also need to pace ourselves. But that was a great question, Matt, really good. Angela, we probably have time for 1 or 2 more, yeah?
Yeah. So the next question was submitted by Diana. Thank you, Diana. If I am on my way of getting certified as an interpreter, is there a career pathway for me at Polaron? Either Eva or Carla, take it away.
Please send us your CV.
Yes.
We love people that are interested in the profession. Absolutely.
Yes, please. My email is Carla f@polaron.com.au. So if any of the participants or attendees would like to see a pathway of working with Polaron, or they want more information about how to become an interpreter, just send me an email. I'm happy to help.
Cool. We have time for one more question, I think, and there's a lot of discussion going on, so that's really good. Interpreters are extroverts, so like that's really good that we are contributing. Angela, over to you.
Yeah, so Swarna, your question is wonderful, but we might just, because it's very specific, I might skip yours and we will send you a follow-up email regarding it.
Sure.
But we'll go to Caitlin. So her question was, do most interpreters get the majority of their work through agencies?
What a good question. Mikoto, did you want to take that one?
Yes, because I think most jobs are like a police or court or government jobs, so they have to come through the agencies. But I think if you use social media and you market yourself, you can get direct clients. Yeah. So all depends. If you have any expertise, you can market yourself and target your market.
That's right. And in fact, it's really good to have a mix of both. And, it takes a while to build up your practice. And when you first start out, working through language service providers is not a bad idea at all, because you get the experience and you don't have to hunt for work. Serena, you probably agree with me that having a mix is a good idea, yeah?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think, a mix even, between some really major, companies to, more boutique agencies such as yours, Eva, Polaron. And I find with the smaller agencies or more boutique, business or service providers, they have more flexibility, and you can negotiate and you can discuss your needs a lot better, better than if you were, taking a job from bigger agencies where, for them, the business model is volume and they don't worry too much about, specific jobs. But yeah, look, I also have a few clients, on my book who are direct clients, and I think a mixture is very, very good.
Great answer, and that wraps up our session, everyone. So I do want to say thank you sincerely to Serena, to Mikoto, to Carla, and Lee for contributing and for answering all the questions. And I think we all are open to anyone that's wishing to pursue this as a career, to have a chat, to have a coffee, to support you. And it was really good to see some of the long-established colleagues joining. It was great. It's like I really feel re-energized. So thank you so very much. And thanks to Angela and Emily for organizing the session and the slides and all of that. It takes a lot to get a session like this going. But because there's an appetite for it, we're going to be back next year and we'll talk about a day in the life of a project manager in a translation company, so that you can see the other side of things, and also a bilingual worker and a few others. So thank you. And I just wanted to also take the opportunity to wish everybody a wonderful 2023. It's just around the corner. So make sure you take a break. Make sure you're disconnect. Not that I will be. I'm always, switched on, always working. But it's important to look after yourself, your mental health, and take a break. So hopefully we all come back all refreshed in 2023. But thank you again so very much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, everybody.